Well, hello there. So this feels a totally appropriate thing to talk about just after a swim because it's neurogenesis. That's what we're going to look at now. Neurogenesis, and what is it? So there was an old view that everybody accepted that was pushed by the mainstream science, and this is the old view. So the old view is that when you reach about age 20, 21, 22, something like that, you had actually fully developed your brain and all the nerve cells in the brain. And what happened from that point onwards is gradually these nerve cells would die off, which would mean that you become gradually, over a period of time, less intelligent, more dumb, more stupid. Now, it's amazing that this view could ever have actually been taken seriously, because you've only got to just go back, just stop, rewind and replay what I just said. And when you do that, you realise, what a stupid load of nonsense. And yes, that's right, it is a stupid load of nonsense. It's been discovered that this view, which has been pushed by mainstream science, and you hear it quoted all the time on the media, really common statement, oh well, someone's had a few whiskeys, they've just lost so many brain cells. It's all untrue. The real truth of the matter is, it depends on your personal choices as to the state of your brain, and your brain has the capability of what is called neurogenesis, which means you can create new nerve cells. And this is the case for all people except those who are suffering from cognitive decline, which then leads to Alzheimer's and dementia. For such people, this is no longer possible because of the formation of something called amyloid plaque on the brain. And when this plaque becomes entrenched, it's rather like sticky tar. Imagine some sticky tar on your clothes you picked up from the road or something like that. Very hard to remove. Well, this amyloid plaque is also very hard to remove. So, except for those cases, all the rest of us have the ability to regenerate our brains and our nervous system. We can produce new nerve cells. And it turns out there's a whole lot of things we can do which makes this process work less well, more poorly, and can actually even stop it from functioning. And there's a whole lot of other things we can do where it actually encourages neurogenesis and keeps us on the ball. So this has become a fascinating subject of research for me, and it was really January I started to get some more serious information coming into my understanding about all this. But this is what I want to leave you in this film, is to understand that the old lie of you can't replace your nerve cells and your brain cells is not true. You can. You can actually increase the number of nerve cells in your brain. You can increase your intelligence, you can become smarter, and you can do this at any age. That's right, it doesn't matter whether you're in your 20s or in your 80s, you can actually improve your cognitive abilities. But it all depends on the choices that you make. So what we'll be doing in part 3 is we'll go through the list of things that you can do, things you can take in, which is going to really help you. But before we do that, I really need to make this point, because this one came as quite a shock to me. First of all, there's something called early onset dementia. There was a time people used to think you could only get these diseases at an advanced age. Well, that's no longer the case. You can get these illnesses at a much younger age. That's the first rather shocking surprise. And the second thing is that people have had a terminology for a while called the senior moment, which means a person at any age can suddenly get into this brain fog, can't remember what was going on moment. So this is kind of recognised. It's not just limited to a particular age group. And that brings us to the third thing about this whole subject, about cognitive decline, which is that it's so much to do with the choices that you make. So if a person is, say, in their 30s or early 40s, they could say to themselves, well, that's not going to affect me for decades yet, I don't have to pay attention. Well, what I've just explained to you is actually, this is something you need to be aware of at any age whatsoever, because we are in the process of being very slowly engulfed by this massive tidal wave. That brings me back to the first song. Imagine a tidal wave which is so huge and monstrous, but it's in slow-mo. It's moving at such a slow speed that if you were to look up at the sky, well, it's there, it hasn't moved at all. And you can come back a week later, it just looks exactly the same. And you could lull yourself into a false sense of security of thinking, well, it's okay, I don't need to do anything, there's no problem at all, it's absolutely fine. And yet, inexorably, that tidal wave is moving to engulf our entire cultural civilization. So therefore, the thing to do is be one of the smart people and take action now to create all the right circumstances for neurogenesis, which literally means the ability to create new nerve cells and brain cells, which means to keep yourself smart, wise, in touch, connected, and interested. Thank you very much. That's the end of part 2.